Today's episode is all about how to adapt your restaurant while still staying true to your core concept. Today, I'm talking to Casey Wills, president of Argo Land and Cattle Company in Tucson, Arizona, which is better known as Pinnacle Peak Steakhouse, El Corral Prime Rib House, Savoy Opera House, and Trellis Town. Casey has been in the restaurant industry for more than 25 years and is jack of all trades, master of none. Today, Casey and I are going to take a deep dive into how his curiosity as a leader has helped him be successful in the restaurant business, how he invests in himself as a leader, and how he's been able to shift the company's mindset and his mindset to help them thrive after being open since 1962. This is a discussion about a business model that I have never seen before, and that is absolutely fascinating. There's a ton of value in this episode. Hope you enjoy. Welcome to the Restaurant Leadership Podcast, the show where restaurant leaders learn tools, tactics, and habits from the world's greatest operators. I'm your host, Kristen Marvin, with Solutions by Kristen. I've spent the last 2 decades in the restaurant industry and now partner with restaurant owners to develop their leaders and scale their businesses through powerful one-on-one coaching, group coaching, and leadership workshops. This show is complete with episodes around coaching, leadership development, and interviews with powerful industry leaders. You can now engage with me on the show and share topics you'd like to hear about, leadership lessons you want to learn, and any feedback you have. Simply click the link at the top of the show notes and I will give you a shout out on a future episode. Thanks so much for listening, and I look forward to connecting. Casey, you are like a wealth of knowledge when it comes to the hospitality industry, and I have learned so much from you already. You are such a curious person, though. Have you always been curious, or how did that come to be?
Yes. Short version is yes. I need to know how things work, why they work. That's, maybe feels like that's some sort of family of origin kind of stuff that I'm already mentioning. But basically is that I like the way that I process the world is understanding how it works. So it ends up meaning that I get really curious about things. And if it's learning how to do something restaurant based, great. If it's just knowing how something else works in the world, I don't like not knowing, and I don't like being confused.
Yeah. Where did that come from? How did you develop that skill?
It feels like it's, it probably feels like learning in school world always kind of is generally, fairly easy for me. It sounds bad. I'm not trying to be egotistical or something. I was one of those kids that didn't have to study, and then got to the point where you kind of need to study no matter how smart you think you are. But I hadn't developed all those skills yet. So the first year of college was interesting because it was like, oh wait, I need to actually have honed a bunch of study skills that I do not have. So when learning and how to do stuff and being a know-it-all, that's how I learned how to do it. And saying I didn't know was not comfortable for me. I'm now fine with it, but.
Do you feel like you lack some discipline when you transition to college, and then you were like, oh my gosh, now I have to start actually studying?
Oh, for sure. 100%. It is also the time of my life, it was the lack of discipline for sure, at least in terms of things that were, things that came easy to me was fine, or things I was interested in was fine. I don't think I missed work, you know what I mean? I was working full time and going to school full time, and it wasn't a big deal to balance that part of it. It was more about, you really need to sit down and study before this test, or it's going to go poorly. And it's like, or I could just not. So the discipline kind of came later in life when I realized that procrastinating was not helping. And as much as I thought I was clever for I was doing my best work in the 11th hour. So why would I bother working until doing anything? I'll just jump in. I'll be fresh. I'll knock it out. Why bother with all this stuff before I get there?
Did you teach yourself that lesson, or did you have some help?
No, I had to. Life but I taught myself that lesson. It was basically that, I'm not getting the results I want, so something's got to give. And then it became like, yes, studying is lame, but ultimately I have to do it. So,
yeah.
Ego writing checks, body couldn't cash situation, I think, if you want a movie reference.
Totally. How has that curiosity helped you be successful in the restaurant business?
Sure. It's the restaurant industry. I find I've been in it for almost 26 years, and there's always something new to learn or fire to put out or something. So being a person that likes helping others and likes being of service to other people, either that I care about, that I care of, or I'm responsible for, or what have you, is people asking me how to fix a problem, and if I don't know the answer, that doesn't work well in my worldview of wanting to help people and trying to help them. So when it relates to the company, we're in primarily most of our revenue comes from steakhouse kind of sales, but both steakhouses do not operate like a normal restaurant. They don't have a normal brigade style kitchen that everything comes out of with a full culinary team. They don't work like that. And that's a bunch of the revenue of the company. Some of the other one is basically catering, and then the rest of it is an amusement park and a commercial landlord kind of a situation. So kind of by needs of survival, I had to learn more about how to do it. So we didn't have to outsource it. It's a small family company. We didn't have the resources to just say, oh, call the guy, call somebody to take care of that. It's like, no, we got to figure this out like right now. So ended up being curiosity to how do I learn how to fix this problem so if it ever comes up again, I can address it, or how do I make sure that I don't have that problem again, basically. Mm-hmm. So a little bit of survival and curiosity and that kind of thing.
Will you talk a little bit more about your steakhouse model?
Sure.
And how it works? Yeah.
So we've got we have two main brands that we do. One's called Pinnacle Peak Steakhouse. The other one's called El Corral Prime Rib House. Most people just know it as El Corral. So Pinnacle Peak has an unusual model for a few different reasons. First and foremost, it's a family-friendly, casual steakhouse. And it's the only steakhouse I'm aware of that is dedicated to fun. So one of the things is trying to figure out, to get clarity around what it is that you do or that you sell. And Pinnacle Peak sells fun. They do that through steaks and cutting your tie off and all that stuff. But really what they offer to people is brain chemicals through the version of fun. So the restaurant has 5 dining rooms, and it actually has 5 grills. And the grills all kind of work as almost an independent kitchen from each other. So each one is a team. So a griller will have what's called a pitter that they work with. There's not a great equivalent, sort of like an assistant, sort of like a pantry, sort of like a sous, sort of like it's all these things, but it's not really any of them. So the griller is going to be it's going to be their own expediter. They're going to be their own main cook, and everything comes off of there, and they work with that. They're then partnered with or teamed with a certain number of servers to have a certain number of tables. On a big night, that might be it's usually up to about 8, maybe even 10 servers, each having 4 to 5 tables. So one griller is in charge of, say, 50 tables, or 25 tables or something like that. So each of them work independently, and there's a central kitchen where you can get your salads and that kind of stuff from. But all the specialty items, your steaks, main center plate, all of that, all come off the grill. So one of the things that gets interesting about that is, and it was we have a workaround for a point of sale system. The server, when they bring in their food, they need to direct it to the appropriate grill in the restaurant. So they don't just fire an order and it figures it out. If they've been partnered with, say, Grill 3, we're very creative what we call these things, then they know that all night long they need to fire the orders to Grill 3 specifically. Mm-hmm. And then let's say you have a guest come in that knows the griller on Grill 2. Then they say, well, his name's Brian. It's almost always there. He's been with us 30 some odd years. They'd say, well, I want Brian to cook for me tonight. I'd say, no problem. They bring in the order as normal and fire it to Brian instead of the rest of the restaurant. And then they can have Brian cook for them tonight. So as a model, that makes that kind of everything else funnels out from there. There's one prep cook that preps in the morning, starts up the beans, gets everything else so it's ready, basically hit the grill and go out to the guests. This particular model it works for up to about 3,000 people in a shift, an 8-hour shift. So the restaurant seats about 500. So you can turn the restaurant multiple times with this model, and the ticket times, turn times, everything is still normal, so to speak.
Running a restaurant is tough. Long hours, staffing challenges, rising costs. Sound familiar? What if I told you there's a smarter way to manage your kitchen, boost your staff's morale, and keep your operations running smoothly? Enter Restaurant Technologies, the ultimate solution for modern kitchen management. Here's how Restaurant Technologies can transform your business. 1. Solve labor challenges. They automate unpleasant tasks like manually handling used cooking oil. They keep your staff safe and happy while promoting a safer, more efficient kitchen. 2. Reduce operating costs. They help you save money by optimizing oil usage and eliminating third-party cleaning services with their auto mist technology. Some restaurants save up to $300 per month per location. Number 3, they help you ensure consistent food quality. Fresh oil means better tasting food every single time. They help you monitor your oil usage remotely with ease. Number 4, enhance safety. Reduce fire risks and injuries by eliminating the need to handle hot oil. Number 5, promote sustainability. Join the eco-friendly movement by recycling used oil into biofuel. And number 6, maintain a clean kitchen. Imagine no more spills, pests, or messy cleanups. The result? A safer, cleaner, more efficient kitchen that saves you money and keeps your team happy. Ready to see why over 45,000 restaurants from small independents to large multi-unit concepts trust Restaurant Technologies? Visit rti-inc.com to learn more. You guys took over or opened Pinnacle Peak in 1965?
The restaurant opened in 1962. Our company took over the operation and ownership in the mid-60s, somewhere right in there, somewhere 64, 65.
And has the model always stayed the same?
Pretty close. The thing that's changed through the times in terms of the model is it kind of had to change. It had to evolve a bit with the times to reflect people's, changing tastes. But the core model is pretty much unchanged. If you wear a tie-in, they're going to cut it off because it's part of the fun. If you are going to have somebody cooking on real mesquite wood, the main cuts that we offer of beef are largely unchanged. Still, T-bones and porterhouses is kind of the main thing that we offer. The rest of it has, of course, evolved in terms of, we have to offer chicken. We have to offer, fish and salmon. We have to offer vegetables aside from just beans. Those things have added on through times, but by and large, if you had come in 1963 and you came in today, the experience is not that different.
How have you guys, I mean, talk a little bit about business trends since 1965, and we can focus more on, I know you're so well-versed on the entire company, but maybe it makes more sense to focus on the last, 20 plus years that you've been in the business. has business always been great? I mean, there's this wild seasonality of Tucson. Talk a little bit about how business has been up, when business has been down, and how you've adjusted. You guys have adjusted for that, and speak a little bit to what you do in summertime and how you survive, because it is absolutely brutal here.
Yes, it is. So the restaurant is part of the. So in terms of the popularity of the restaurant, we of course have to monitor things like revenue, just keep an eye on bank accounts and cash. But really, the company is focused on guest counts. That's really we have a volume model with low margin. So that means we need people coming in and having fun every day, having a great time. So the restaurant has been here for 62 years, and it means that it has seen Tucson grow up and change around it. So when it first opened, the main road that we're on, it was a dirt road, and now it's a 6-lane road that's a major thoroughfare to get across the city. So in comparison to where we are today, we don't have as much of the market share as we did, because there are so many more competitors in the market. So we can kind of draw lines to a few kind of points in time when things shifted, and that we saw, like, we can point to a couple of those. So not unlike a lot of places, is that like 9/11 was not specific because of the event, but because of all the things that came along afterwards with recessions and whatnot. That marked the June of 2001. The restaurant served 3,000 people at Father's Day, and that was the highest guest count to that point, and is the highest guest count in one day that the company ever had. So from that point, then there's a few kind of moments in time through after that we could kind of point to and go, oh, we lost a little market share there. And the moments that happened like that tended to be, competitors moved into the market. I can't remember what year it was, but Tucson was reportedly hit 1 million people. And when it hits these certain magical thresholds, national accounts go, whoa, it hit the metrics that we use to move into a market. They move into the market. And so now there were only locally owned Cowboy steakhouses in Tucson prior to, I can't remember what year it was, about 2010 or so. And then all the national steakhouses all showed up. And of course, we're going to lose some market share for them for whatever reason. So where it's evolved and how we're staying relevant today is by focusing in on the experience that we offer and trying to make it as fun as we can. People, a steak that is not cooked the way you want it is not fun. And having to talk about that is not fun. So if it comes out the way you want it, tastes great, you're having a good time. So we try to focus on that. Look for same thing that all restaurants do. Yes, we try to look at costs, but you can't save your way out of trouble. You can only work on bringing more guests in. That's the top line, is the fastest way to grow anything. And then also is Pinnacle Peak is located within something called Trellis Town. And it's not an amusement park, it's a destination. But one of the ways that we have been able to pivot through all these changes is by using Trellis Town to help drive attention and business into the restaurant. It used to be the other way around. Trellis Town used to be a place to occupy to make it a wait not seem as bad. And now we actually use it as a thing to drive business into the restaurant. So
interesting.
Yeah. So the summertime is rough. Tucson restaurants, I think the number I believe I've heard is that they tend to lose 30% of their guests in comparison. Like it's that big of a swing. So we basically, we try to batten down the hatches a little bit. our model is such that, I mentioned we have 5 dining rooms, 5 grills. We can actually make the restaurant essentially smaller whenever we need to. So because of the way it's designed, we don't have to operate 5 dining rooms all summer long with all the added overhead and associated payroll costs. We go, oh, we're looking quiet tonight, and we know we're going to be quiet, so we're only going to open one of our dining rooms. So that means we only have, the team shrinks down to be appropriate for that level of business. That methodology generally works for us. People have a tendency to take vacation in summer. We look for special event opportunities to do the same thing to try to drive business in. We do all those things, and really, as far as the way that we do it is, we try to have such a strong season that we, put a lot of air in the tires, so to speak, so that by the time we get to the end of September, that we're ready, we're okay, we're safe, and that we come back around to, gas up the tires. I don't know where I was going with that metaphor. But I think,
I gotcha.
I think it's going to mix those pretty well. So.
Yeah, you're going to lose some air in the summertime, right?
Yeah.
So what made you guys make that mindset shift, and what you were talking about earlier as far as Pinnacle Peak really being the draw for Trail Town, but now Trail Town being the draw for the steakhouse?
It came down to wait times. So one of the things we ran into is that, so the restaurant has been here for 60 years. Charlestown's been here for 60 years. And it used to be back in the 80s, for especially folks on the east side of Tucson, this is what you did. Friday night, Saturday, one of those 2 nights, you went to the Tanqueray swap meet that used to be on Camaraderie and is now Palo Verde. And then you went to Pinnacle Peak for dinner. That was your Friday night was planned every week. And so the wait times on Fridays and Saturdays especially were 2 to 3 hours. Weekdays, they were 2 to 3 hours. They were doing 600 to 800 guests on a Monday night, like clockwork, to the extent that before cryovacking really came in, they would, the managers who were ordering and receiving steaks daily would get static from the administrative office if they had more than about 3 steaks on the shelf when they closed. They were getting a talking to about why are there steaks on the shelf.
Wow.
And generally speaking, they had nights where they would nail it. The last guest would order the last steak and not be directed to it because we're out of everything. Just they were getting that good about it. So when the wait times went from being 2 hours every single night to being you could walk in anytime you wanted, maybe Saturday night, 6 o'clock, you'd have to wait a little bit. I came into my position and it was like, okay, well, what do we do now? Charlestown has always been a loss leader. So because it was in service to the restaurant and it was part of your restaurant experience. So now what do we do when we don't have the wait times that help to bring the loss leader to not be quite as much of a loss? And the other thing is with both places having been here for so long, everyone knew about Pinnacle Peak, but no one knew what Charlestown was. So we said, let's work on bringing the branding up for Jell-O'S. Let's get that brand awareness up so that we kind of had 2 engines on that plane, right? Bring people to us. And then it's funny because we actually apparently we did a great job with Trellis Town, at least amongst certain folks, where now they know all about Trellis Town, don't know anything about the restaurant, which has been weird. I'll just say that. So when we saw that the wait times were not what we wanted, and we're having to look at guest counts dropping, in comparison year to year and whatnot, we had to do something. So we said, well, what assets do we have? We've got this gigantic asset. Let's go for it. So we started using that to drive, to try to, as a marketing engine, to try to drive business.
Nice. Hi, everybody. We're taking a quick break to offer you an exciting opportunity. If you're a restaurant owner or manager looking to enhance your leadership skills, I invite you to join my 12-day leadership challenge. In just 12 days, you'll receive a guided packet, with actionable strategies to transform your leadership in less than 5 minutes a day. Join the challenge and the community and grab your copy at kristenmarvin.com/12 days. Now let's get back to the show. Are you seeing that people are still willing to wait?
Yes. Yep. Still willing to. If we, a good Saturday night and whatnot, 2-hour waits, we're stressed out of our minds about it because it's just a really long time to ask somebody to wait for a table.
Yeah.
But we don't usually get too much pushback about it, which is sort of surprising because asking anyone to wait for 2 hours at any restaurant in Tucson at any time, it's crazy around here.
Yeah.
People don't make reservations, so they just walk in and expect to be sat.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've noticed that.
I have. But that's the beauty of being a destination spot, right? And having the history that you guys have, and we can celebrate you for single-handedly saving Trellis Town.
Sure.
So let's talk a little bit about the tenure of your leadership team. You said Brian's been there on the grill for 30 years. How about your management team?
Yeah, so our food and beverage director, she just moved to that position in May of this year. She has been with the company off and on for about 20 years, and she was the general manager of Pinnacle Peak for 12 years. And she had been a manager for up to maybe 14, 15 years. So she came to the company as a server, actually left the company for a brief period of time. She was interested in going to management. There wasn't a position available. She went outside the company, which worked out for us because she went to a national company that had a very strong training program, got a ton of training, and then came back to us because she couldn't quite get the restaurant out of her blood, and the position became available. So after so she's been with us that long. Her counterpart, her assistant at that restaurant, who's now the manager, has been with us about probably 8 to 10 years. She came up through bartending and then came into it that way. The supervisor there, it's a 3-person management team, 2 salaried, 1 hourly. It's kind of the easiest way to say it. He's been a server there for 18 years, and he does managing, supervising, and serving. The other restaurant, we just kind of went through our previous general manager had been with the company for 42 years, and she retired in February of this year. So we had to kind of backfill that because somebody taking with them 42 years of kind of institutional knowledge is a huge loss. So we backfilled from there. We just had some folks come into play. The average tenure at that restaurant is about 7 years, from disher all the way up to the manager. So a lot of the people, we didn't lose anybody in that transition in terms of, because that happens. You have a big management change, you're going to usually have some attrition. Just, I don't like this person, or it makes people pick their head up and think, "Ooh, is this the right fit for me?" Mm-hmm. We didn't actually lose anybody in the transition. And now the new manager there has been there since October. Supervisor, we actually is working, learning supervising, and is now supervising at one restaurant, but grills at the other one. And the assistant manager came out of the kitchen, and he's been there probably 15 years or so. So kind of brought that along.
That's incredible. What is your guys' approach to development of your leaders?
Sure. It's nothing formal. Something that's been on my radar to make a formal process for a while, but then the Ferris wheel breaks and I have to go fix it. That's a literal example. Yeah. So from a development standpoint, it's basically is that historically it's been, kind of, for lack of a better term, school of the hard knocks. We try to give them a lot of support in terms of, okay, what do you guys need? How can we help? then as I've, kind of learned more and more, I'll share what I know with them anytime we have a meeting. So it's kind of ongoing, be it one-on-one or small group, that just doing training pretty much ongoing. More recently, we had our food and beverage director, a new management training program became available in Tucson because there's just not a ton of them to begin with. So we enrolled her in that program. And so she's been in it now. It just launched in September. So she's been to 2-3 meetings. And the goal of having her go through that program is to get all the sort of business training that goes far beyond what you do. It's just, running a restaurant from shift to shift or even month to month, is getting all that real baseline training. So we're kind of having her pilot it. If that goes well, which seems to be fine so far, then we'll extend that out to the one level down, so to speak. And then we're looking for something slightly more formal or regular to provide to the rest of the training, the rest of the team, and to try to build out something more formal to hopefully have folks that are on the team that are interested in management, but they haven't told anybody, that they kind of identify themselves beyond just being a leader on the floor or what have you. So hoping to create something more formal. Currently it's just, chatting with them and trying to work through situations as they arise.
Yeah, I love it. The organic approach is incredible. It's all about connection and customizing it to exactly what they need, which is great, right? And what they want. What can I ask who the management training program's through?
Yeah, it's a group called 3 Pillars Performance.
Okay.
And it was, there's a peer advisory group out there that it's called Vistage. And I got involved with that a few years ago. And that has been mostly my professional development stuff is kind of what that program is. That's why I'm a member of it. And the group that we had, the chairperson is what the title of it and the cult is that they created a management training program it's like a monthly kind of thing that they created to go through that, and that's kind of like a general business training.
Is it hospitality specific or just general business overall? Okay, got it. I love it.
And they one of the things that could be helpful about it is that like hospitality is weird. I'm sure you've run into that the challenges that we face, it's just kind of more interesting, I guess you'd say, than some of the people. But it's always fascinating how the flavorings of them might be different, but the core issue is the same across all this. Right. Is that maybe the immediacy of when we have to address problems or customer service or whatnot is different, or that we're opening a restaurant every night on speculation. We're doing all this work. People have been working for days and weeks to open it and hope that people come out to dinner. And there's only so much you can do if they decide not to do that night. So, so what I kind of like about that program is, especially for somebody that's at a director level, is that they're not just spending time really immersed in restaurant world, they're kind of having their horizons broadened with, if there might be, I think in her group, I remember hearing that there were some folks from the construction industry. So problems are the same, but then they can have a completely different perspective of it, or they're new connections into our local community of learning how construction works. Not by on purpose, but sort of almost by osmosis at that point. So.
Got it. How are you investing in your own leadership development in your position?
It's primarily in time, and in this particular group, one of the things that's helpful with it is that there's speakers every month, and the topics tend to they're not really hospitality specific, they're just more like general business. So I have a tendency to read a lot, and then, or try to anyway, whenever I find time or I didn't fall asleep before I had a chance to read something. I am reading a very good book right now. You might know the author.
Don't do it. Shameless plug.
Well, I read 30 pages last night because I hit a section that I was not anticipating to see that level of vulnerability. And I was like,
Oh,
well,
okay.
I'm not putting this down right now. Anyway, but I tend to do that kind of thing. And then that particular group I'm in has a lot of opportunities, be it to do networking and connection, but not networking to try to get more sales or something, networking to try to learn more. So, like this afternoon, there's a small group that we're going to be chatting about. One guy is in the financial world, and the other person does insurance and like multi-unit housing construction. So while I'll do nothing hospitality related, but I get the opportunity to learn how what these other industries go through and find out what applies, what applies and what doesn't.
Yeah, I mean, how has being a part of a group like that really? I mean, it sounds like it's offering you a lot of different perspectives that you can apply to business. But if you could narrow down, and single out one or two great impacts that's had on the business, what would you call out?
Yeah, the ones that I would say are that it ends up being the broadening in perspective, and that like one of the things that they talk about, I guess the single biggest thing is that, which I kind of had a sense of, but I didn't really, as long as I kind of like, all business is the same. It really is. And it's even beyond that, is that like kind of the human condition is fairly universal. And it's been an interesting experience of, what, if you're talking to an attorney, for example, right? And they're a very successful attorney, and they're have a famous firm. They're doing great, right? And you're talking to them, and they'll be sharing some sort of stress they've got, and the stress, whatever the stressor is the same. And it's not like you shouldn't compare yourself to others, but it was sort of interesting. And like, oh, I've actually been through that problem. Here's how it landed for me. Here's what worked. Here's what didn't. So to have it where more so that those challenges are all the same, and then to be like, it's really easy to build up whatever problem you're dealing with into being the biggest problem in the world. And then you chat with somebody, and then again, you shouldn't compare because that's not a good way to live. But you go, wow, yeah, this person's problem is a way bigger deal right now. And it can kind of help to put things in perspective. Mm-hmm. So from that aspect, doing leadership stuff, it can be really challenging to see that oftentimes you have to look beyond your own perspective to see what's actually going on. And so from that kind of concept that's been really having a group of people that are, the only thing we have in common really is this group, and that we're in a similar position of our respective companies is really helpful for that.
Yeah, I love that perspective and that aspect, because I've been a part of similar community organizations, and just to know that somebody else is going through something is really, it's just very impactful. It's very comforting. It makes leadership feel less lonely, and it's incredible that we're in this industry where we're serving people every day, and we're constantly in contact and connection with people. But leadership can be very, very lonely, and groups like that are just incredible resources.
Yeah, and it also can get interesting too, where even within, if it's say the hospitality industry, right? Like, so our company, we have about 160 staff members, and of that, about 100 to 110 are part-time. And so in my position, we have a small administrative team, but I'm not necessarily coming into contact with 160 people every day. Well, at least staff members. But when in specific to our own industry, if I'm in a group of folks that are other restaurant people, they might only have a single operation, or they might have a really small business where they've got 6 people that run their whole thing. So it's not that the challenges are any different, but it's sometimes the feeling of camaraderie isn't quite the same when you're like, well, yeah, but the challenge I'm facing is it's not bigger or smaller. It's just different because it involves 160 people, whereas the one they're dealing with is like 6.
Yeah.
So the challenge is the same, but the camaraderie feels a little different when you've worked on the line before. So working on the line is different than working on the floor.
Yeah.
They're not one. Depends on who you ask. Which one's harder?
Yeah.
I maybe have my own opinions about that.
Yeah, I'd say the line.
Yeah, it's the line. But that's also because I like cooking. I'm more of a back of house kind of person, but I had to do front of house for most of the career. But it ends up being is that the feeling of camaraderie you get is different. So it's the same kind of thing when you go to all these groups as if you're chatting with someone that is a single unit operator that's got 10 people on the team, and they all hang out together, and it's might be a literal family. That feels different than if it's I'm not a big chain person, but chatting with someone that runs a chain restaurant is also different. So that's the camaraderie is still there, but it just feels differently. So that's where some of these peer advisor groups that you can get the same feeling without necessarily being in the same industry.
Mm-hmm. What's your biggest challenge right now?
It's kind of the uncertainty and instability that comes anytime there's kind of change. That's been kind of where we've been for the last 5 years or so. Since,
like external change, you mean?
Yeah. Internally, it's all kind of the same. We don't have a lot of change within the company in terms of the brass tacks of what we do. The biggest challenges are, at least as a company, is basically just figuring out how we adapt to this ever-changing landscape while keeping what we do the same. Yeah. The restaurant, the guests of the restaurant tend to be wildly resistant to any changes from what they view as being their experience, which is quite the compliment, but it's also really frustrating sometimes because, perception is reality. So we read the riot act for an entire week a few years ago because the color of the beans bowl changed.
Wow. So
not people swore up and down the beans changed. And the servers are talking to them, they're going, I promise you, it's only the bowl. Yeah. And it didn't change material, it changed color. And they swore up and down and didn't believe us. And, sir, how dare you change my experience? And we're
did you have to change the bowls back?
Uh-huh.
Wow.
They literally changed the bowls back. And then a few years goes by, and then we, at the time, they were like a plastic kind of bowl thing. And they changed from red to brown, I think it was. And it was reason because we were running low on one of them, and we couldn't get them. They weren't available.
Yeah.
Eventually, we found them, brought them back in, and they're all suddenly, the beans are back. And we're same guy making them, same spices, the same jar. You know what I mean? Because when you make as many beans as they do, you're not buying spices. You know what I mean? You're buying 55-gallon things of spices. Everything is the same. And the only thing that changes is the bean. So that's kind of one of the challenges is how do we adapt to ever-changing times while keeping this core concept basically as unchanging as we can for our guests. On the kind of my own job or my perspective, it's mainly trying to set up systems for myself so that I'm not that I have allowed time for big scale projects, things that are basically how do I make it so that I have built in time to allow for distractions and time to not allow for distractions.
Yeah. And what are one of those systems that you've been able to implement?
One of them is business. The funny business term they've got for it right now. Deep work. I think that's what they call it. So I've tried to do it where I'll schedule into my day, just for an hour and a half. I'm going to close my door to my office and just plug away at whatever this larger, longer term schedule that, if it's writing a process or trying to dream up what strategy is going to look like, or okay, what is the goal for next year? I find it's because that doesn't tend to be my normal everyday kind of strength, like the way that I feel about it. Then I'm more susceptible to distraction. So I have to, like, it takes discipline for me to sit for an hour and a half and try to plug away at, like, okay, what are we gonna do next year to meet goals, or what are the goals? What is realistic? What is not realistic? So, so far it's helped a little bit, but because it's not something I gravitate towards. Sorry.
Puppies are present.
Yeah, and then they left my door open, so that's cool. But they, one of the is by how to adhering to that, having the discipline to adhere to that schedule. So,
yeah,
all right, it's 8:30 in the morning. Restaurants don't open until 5. It's just admin people, and just tell them, like, hey, I'm going to work on a project until 10. So only bother me if something really can't wait until after 10.
Yeah, I love it. You're setting some boundaries. That's great.
Theoretically. The hardest part about boundaries is adhering to them yourself.
Yeah. So. Yeah, absolutely. I love it. Well, Casey, I can't thank you enough for being here.
Sure.
and sharing all this knowledge with us. Just super, super valuable info. We'll put all the links to El Corral and Pinnacle Peak and Trellis Town in the show notes for sure. So if you're listening, get over there Friday night, Monday night, Tuesday night, you've got a big event, you want to ride the Ferris wheel, you want to have your tie cut off, they're there for you for sure.
We will be there. We're only closed Christmas Day and Thanksgiving Day. Otherwise, bring a tie if you dare.
I love it. I love it. All right, everybody, that's going to do it for us this week. Please share this episode with any leaders in the industry that you think could benefit, and we'll talk to you next week.